Hello, security pros. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today for ESA's webinar, Indoor Floor Plan Mapping for Electronic Security and Asset Location. Have you visited a customer site and wasted time searching for assets that need maintenance? No one at site knows where the items are either. What if only you had been provided an up-to-date digital floor plan with all the assets clearly identified upon it? Locatrix has a very simple way to do this called PlanStudio. PlanStudio is fast becoming a tool being used for indoor mapping and locating of assets and saving break-fix records. Join this webinar, and we look forward to helping you solve this problem. I'm Daniela Chavez, ESA's Marketing and Communications Specialist, and I'm excited to lead this webinar today. Before we dive in, I'd like to provide some tips for those of you joining us on your first ESA webinar. Welcome. You will be muted for the duration of this session, but that doesn't mean that we don't want to hear from you. If a question or comment comes to mind at any point during today's session, click the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen, and I'll ensure that we save some time for your questions with our experts today. We'll also be recording this webinar so you can rewatch the on-demand session and share it with your colleagues. Tomorrow, you will all receive an email thanking you for your attendance today with a link to the recording. If your company is a member of ESA, we thank you, and we hope you're utilizing your benefits to save, expand your team, and get connected to the ESA community. If you're not yet a member of the Electronic Security Association, check us out. ESA is the largest and longest standing association serving the pro-installed electronic security and life safety industry. Our members are integrators, dealers, monitoring centers, and even manufacturers and service providers in the space. You'd be surprised at the power an ESA membership holds for your company. Get a feel for all of the ESA benefits, including savings on business insurance, training, customized in-house onboarding, and professional development programs, peer networking groups, government advocacy programs, certifications that satisfy state licensing, and in some cases are also alternatives to NICET at esaweb.org. One of our membership specialists would be happy to walk you through these benefits and the application process. We at ESA realize that your time is valuable, and we appreciate you spending some of that time with us today. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce Andreas Deacon and Cody Ross. Andreas has been with Locatrix since joining in July of 2016. He is a highly experienced consultant and has a sound understanding of services, technical planning, purchasing, and accountability policies and guidelines. He has over 20 years of experience in the IT industry, with previous roles held as CTO for an Australian-based systems integrator, principal consultant ANC, at a software development company designing compliance solutions, and IT manager for an automotive supplier operating in Europe, Asia, and North America. Cody has worked in various different roles at Locatrix since 2016 and is currently a technical consultant and product liaison officer. He has worked to coordinate the development of PlanStudio since its inception and works closely with our partner network to ensure the success of the software for its users, as well as act as a primary communicator between our partner network and software development team. Cody has over 10 years of experience in building design and drafting across multiple different disciplines. So without further ado, Andreas, Cody, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Daniela. I'll make the start. My name is Andreas Deacon. This is Cody Ross, who will lead the demo today. I will provide you a little bit of an overview on Locatrix, how we got to PlanStudio as a software, to the indoor mapping and the asset visualization piece. So the company is started more than 10 years ago and initially began as a private-public partnership between the fire service here in Queensland, Australia, and Locatrix. And initially, we're very focused with our training tool, which always had an interactive floor plan, so an indoor map on the fire service, and providing a service to the fire industry. And as part of creating evacuation plans and zone block plans and those kind of things, and as part of the training, indoor mapping, wayfinding, and showing where particular at that time fire assets and reference points were, mapping has always been a big part. 10 years ago, it was all based on pen and paper and a consultant going on site or a technician going on site, taking photos on a phone, and a floor plan would have been marked up on a piece of paper, given back to a drafter, including those photos, and then that got translated into something digital. So a few years ago, we thought there must be a better way of doing it or improving that workflow, that tedious process. And the idea of PlanStudio or developing PlanStudio was born at the time. We've always been a software company and we couldn't find a product off the shelf to improve our own processes. So our IT department developed PlanStudio initially to help ourselves. And then we quickly figured out that we're not the only company having that particular issue of creating indoor floor plans and visualizing assets and showing where things are. The whole industry had that problem. So we started going out to our partner base, to our channel within the fire industry and the fire services industry to provide PlanStudio to them. And then we also recognized very quickly that it's not only the fire industry. Everyone going into a building has an issue of creating or keeping floor plans up to date, showing where assets are, and in particular when you serve and you provide services or maintenance for a particular piece of equipment or asset within a building, it's always hard to find things. So that's the issue we try to fix. So we're fixing with PlanStudio of visualizing the assets and keeping data current and creating floor plans and capturing data in the field. I just hand over to Cody, who will demonstrate the software and show you from creating a floor plan over visualizing the assets, placing assets, onto the output that can be created out of PlanStudio and how it can help people in the field in particular to make all our lives easier. I hand it over to you, Cody.
Thanks, Andreas. Hi, everyone. I'm going to quickly share my screen and we'll do a live demonstration of our software PlanStudio and how you can use it and the different outputs you can get. Can you share my screen? Okay, I am going to assume that everyone can now see this window. This is PlanStudio. So PlanStudio is first and foremost a data collection tool. Inside PlanStudio, we have a range of different tools from drafting floor plans, placing assets, and exporting out data. Everything we do in PlanStudio is spatially accurate. So the starting off point for anything we do in PlanStudio starts with a satellite layer. Every floor plan and asset we place is done over the top of a satellite image, which is hugely beneficial for a few reasons. Firstly, it means that every asset we place in a floor plan has real world longitude and latitude. It also means that our floor plans are locked into a real world scale. So we can't have buildings drawn at incorrect dimensions, and everything therefore lives over the top of that satellite image and can be easily found in the real world. Okay, starting off, I've just located our building. This is our office here in Queensland, Australia. Getting started creating floor plans in PlanStudio, there's a range of different ways you can start off, depending on what you've been given from your client. So if you walked into a building and you had absolutely no floor plans and you have an iPad with a LiDAR scanner, you can walk around the building and create a LiDAR scan of your floor plan that you can use as a reference to create your own floor plans. If you walked into a building and all you could get is a photograph of a floor plan, you could import something like this image I'm importing now. So a bad quality photo of a floor plan. Let me just quickly adjust my layers so you can see what I'm looking at. So a bad quality photo of a floor plan like this. PlanStudio has a bunch of different tools for allowing you to use basically any starting off point to create your assets over a floor plan. So we have an image straightening tool where I can take a bad photograph of a floor plan on someone's desk. We can then straighten this out. With that, we can then rotate it to the correct orientation and then resize this to match our building. Now, depending on your starting off point, you might get a plan like this that has some dimensions along the top. You might not have dimensions. You might have to manually resize this over the top of the building. There are a bunch of different ways to start off. If we have a plan with a dimension like this, we can very simply draw a line over the top of this dimension, and enter in the length of that line we've drawn. So I'm going to do this in feet, even though these dimensions are in meters. I'll rescale this. And then I can just lower the opacity of this image I've uploaded. And we can position this over the top of our satellite image like so. And now we have a floor plan that we can get started with drawing. I'll very quickly turn off my satellite layer and leave this graphic on low visibility so we can see what we draw over the top. So PlanStudio has a wide range of comprehensive tools depending on what you need to do in a building. Starting off up the top, we usually recommend people use the software from left to right. We have a range of tools for firstly drawing and creating all your own floor plans from scratch if you need to in PlanStudio. You can select this wall tool and we can select different wall types and we can start creating our own floor plan in PlanStudio if that's your starting off point. So I'll very quickly just start laying out some walls just to give everyone a bit of an understanding on how the software itself works. It's a very simple and easy to use drafting tool. And our thought process here was we want to give everyone in different industries the ability to create their own floor plans rather than be beholden to building designers, CAD experts, and architects to provide them with up-to-date plans. So you can very quickly lay out some walls and trim off the parts you don't need, like so, and PlanStudio will automatically snap these together. The drafting tools themselves in the software are very simple, and everything we draw in the program uses the same drawing principle. So once you understand how these lines work, you can use that exact same drawing style across everything you do. And this is basically a center line system with some nodes on the end. And if these snap together, your walls will join up. We can then see these center lines, curve our walls, and edit the properties. Everything we do in PlanStudio is data driven. So these walls are not just 2D lines on a page. Everything here has data. It's an external wall with a structural role. We have width, we have height, and we can add any sort of additional data that you want to collect onto these walls. Behind the scenes, while we draw, everything is being extruded into 3D. So there's no simple 2D lines on a page. And it also means that all of the plans we create in PlanStudio come out very consistent. So you're not going to have two different people using the software and coming out with different data sets. PlanStudio will automatically sort all of your data into the correct layering and only display the layers that you're currently using or that are currently relevant to your industry. So with these walls drawn in, I'll very quickly draw in some internal walls. There's a lot of logic and rules behind how these floor plans can work. So for example, I have to have a wall drawn in, and once I do, I can then start adding in different openings into these walls. So I can select my door tool and I can place a door into my wall. I can also then start placing in things like stairs. And these all use the exact same drawing principle as the walls did. So center line, turn these, and now I have a stairwell. Once you have a floor plan drafted up, we can then start layering in different parts of information. So as I said, PlanStudio is very data driven. You can place in assets in a range of different ways. You can place in furniture and fixtures. So these might be assets like printers, fridges, electrical devices, furniture, or computers. You can also start zoning up a floor plan. So once we have a floor plan drawn, we can then start allocating the different parts of this floor plan for different purposes. So the main one we always like to do first is to create an interior zone. An interior zone essentially tells the software what's inside the building and what's outside the building. It places this white area over the top, and this gives us our estimated area for the building in square feet. It also then projects this onto a site plan, but we can start layering up these different zones of a building in a bunch of different ways. So inside here, we can use interior zones. You can show common and shared areas, different tenancies you're not responsible for, as well as start identifying different parts of a building. So if you're doing, say, for example, a large hospital, you can identify part of the building as Ward 1. Inside there, you could break it down into the different wings and then start categorizing different parts of the building So when you're coming back to find your assets, you know the name of the area you're in, and these can stack and make finding assets much more easy because they're then visualized on a floor plan, and that will match any sort of spreadsheet or data export that you're going out to find. So this is the very simple floor plan creation process. Once we've run through these tools, I'm going to quickly jump on out of this plan, and I'll open up one that has a bit more data in it, just to save everyone watching me create one from scratch. Stepping back into our plan manager here, I'll quickly explain the way that PlanStudio works. So when you sign up for PlanStudio, we create what's called a partnership. Inside that partnership, you will then have a list of your own clients. We break it down into a list of clients to help the flow on of information and to automate any sort of standard practices, templates, styles, or equipment that you're going to be using for those clients. So once you get a client set up, you might have an airport, and then you might have a series of restaurants. Those are going to have very different asset types, different templates, and different requirements. So once you set that up in those clients, it speeds up the flow of every other job you do from there. From the client, we then break it down into a campus. So a campus can be a single-story floor plan or a single-story building, standalone on a site, or it can be a collection of buildings like a university campus that all have a relationship with each other. And the reason we do this is so that if you change something on a site plan or in one building that relates to another building, you only need to make that change in one place, and that automatically flows through any other buildings that need or use that information. So it stops double handling, and everything that you do lives on one single floor plan. So if I jump into my demonstration plan here, you'll see I've got one building in here with 2 levels. We'll open this up now. And this is our floor plan. So I'm going to very quickly turn off my background graphic. You can see all my different layers here are already created for me. These are automated by the software, and everything will always appear in the right order, in the right layer, and you can hide, lock, and rename everything in here. So if you end up importing a bunch of different background images, so you've got architectural plans, security plans, fire emergency plans, they can all live in the software, and this can be a living, breathing record of what's in your building. The intention behind PlanStudio is that this is always live, up-to-date data. So any changes should always be reflected here, and every change and plan history is always saved on the server and can be retrieved later on if need be. The benefit of sorting our layers this way means that everyone using the software exports the information in the exact same way. So it's very reliable if you need to import this information into another piece of software, or if you need to constantly export data out. You're not going to be dealing with people creating this data in different ways. Now we have a few assets placed in this floor plan. You can see I've got things like an emergency light. I have smoke detectors. I'll run through quickly the different systems we have after this zone. So in PlanStudio, we have a navigation tool. This can be used for general wayfinding. So for creating things like evacuation diagrams or navigating through the building, if you need to go from point A to point B, or from some position in the building to some allocated asset, we can do that. If I jump into my level 1 plan, through our API, we can do targeting, and we can basically, you can select any asset you need to find, such as this security alarm up the top, and we can navigate you towards that. So if you are walking into a building to service a faulty device and you've never been in this building before, usually you would walk in, you would maybe have a spreadsheet or a list of assets that you are there to service or replace or find and check on. In PlanStudio, we show you all of this on a floor plan, and we're big believers that you're always better off having a floor plan for this information rather than a spreadsheet, especially if you've never been to a building before. You can waste a lot of time walking around, lifting ceiling panels and looking at the ceiling, and you can miss a lot of assets and they end up going unserviced and become non-compliant. So by having a list of all of our assets on a floor plan, we can very easily navigate and find any asset that we're in a building to collect. I'll jump back into my ground floor plan really quickly, and I'll show you how you can start collecting some of this asset information. So we have a equipment tool here. This equipment tool has all of our different asset types. So we have some different icon tools in the top here. We can create a leader line icon, which is this type here with a dot, a line, and a group or collection of icons. All of these icons, we have around 300 assets that come with the software, but you can create any sort of assets you need. We have everything now from hand sanitizer to hydrants and hose reels to air conditioning and security and cameras. Basically anything you can think of either exists or you can create it very quickly. These assets all have customizable data fields. So here I have a fire indicator panel that has a last service date, some compliance information, and all this information can be customized. So whatever information you're walking into a building to collect, you can put that onto your assets and streamline it that way. Every asset can have a range of different information fields, as well as photos, notes, and documents uploaded as well. So if you do have a service history, you can attach any sort of documents or photos directly to an asset on the floor plan, rather than have those floating around in files on your computer. So if you walk in and you see that there's an asset that's faulty, you can upload that and have that information saved on this asset for next time you walk into a building. Placing these assets is very simple. So we have 3 different ways we can place our main assets. The dot with line and group. We can also place assets as an area. So this could be something like a server room that may be not one point on a plan, but an area on a plan. So we can quickly do that by just dragging an area over the plan and typing in the name here. Let's just do a chemical storage area. And you can quickly see that now this highlights this area on the plan. We can also place down these assets as a fixed icon. So these assets here, let me just very quickly turn off some of my layers to make this plan a little bit more clear. Let's turn off the fire layers. Here we go. So a fixed icon has a fixed position. The intention of PlanStudio is to make these exported floor plans always correct for the viewer. So if I rotate my plan as I work, everything will always appear the right way around to the user. These icons here can be directional. So if I place in something like a strobe light and I want my red light to always be in the corner here, these assets let you do this, whereas these leader line icons will always rotate, move, and get out of the way. So when we go to export documents, you can set up the way that they look and they'll always come out looking neat. We also then have a networking tool in PlanStudio. So any assets you place on a floor plan can be connected up with things like power, data, water. You can have sprinkler systems, you can draw HVAC, anything in here. And these assets can then be connected to that network. Let me turn that one on. To that network, and they will then create a relationship. So you can see here I have a sprinkler system drawn in. You can see my sprinkler has all of its test pressures, asset IDs. You can see it is mounted to the ceiling, and then I can connect this to my sprinkler system, and that creates a relationship in the software. So you could use this for drawing in security cameras and motion sensors, swipe cards, and then you can draw in the different data lines that run throughout your building, come back to some sort of central hub, and you can very quickly see the relationship of all these things, the different circuits, how they run through your building, and you can keep track of all that if you need to. Once you have all this data collected, there are a bunch of different things you can do with it. So firstly, it's a live living record. You can walk into a building and use this to service the information, collect new information, find things, and demonstrate this to your clients. You can then also export any sort of information you collect in the software as a CSV file, as a CAD file, or as a simple PDF. So the intention here is that everything we do lives on one floor plan. We then break that floor plan up into different outputs based on templates, icon filters, and styles. So you can use the one floor plan to service many different clients and different needs within the building without having to have multiple floor plans you have to maintain and keep track of. So you can see here, I have an evacuation plan, which is essentially automated through our software. On these evacuation plans or on any sort of plan you do, you can also basically then, these are automated through the system. The system will spit these out as neatly as it can, and then you can then manually as a user change settings and change the appearance of these. So the reason I have this plan in here today is that we have a security area in this building, and we want to hide part of that from the public. So you can place a private zone over any part of a building and hide sensitive information from different users where it's not relevant. We can then also change our templates to display different icon styles and different assets depending on the output. So these are all generated from the same floor plan, completely different styles, completely different purposes. And you can use the same floor plan to create zone block plans, electrical diagrams, anything you need, and it all lives on the one plan. I'll jump into my next level, and we'll have a bit of a look at the security information we've got put down here. So the other types of assets you can place are security cameras. You can place down all of your security cameras. If I place down a new one here, I'll put one in the kitchen. You can draw down your asset, change the field of view. You can then give it a client identifier. So if you have a camera bank, you can identify all these and where they point. You can attach a URL and you can actually tap directly into your camera feeds if you have access through the software. You can then allocate an asset ID. So if you have some sort of other existing form of monitoring and tracking these assets in your building already, you can connect these directly together by giving them the same asset ID in PlanStudio as you use on your current system now. We can then also preview, upload any sort of notes or information. And once we're done at the end, it'll look a little something like this. We always advocate that you should upload photos of all the assets in your building too, in case you have a return and something's missing, or the building owner doesn't know where something went. You can always come back and find it through the software. In here, we also have some motion sensors. Now, these assets could be absolutely anything you create. You're not stuck with the default things that we give you. So we've got some motion sensors and different data fields in the top here. Air conditioning controls, and basically anything you need to collect information on in the building. From here, we could then export a CSV file. So at the very most basic level, you could come into a building, create your floor plans and make any changes you need to, place down all of your assets inside the building, allocate different data fields that you're interested in checking on. So the date that they were serviced, are they compliant, any sort of asset ID, take photos, make any notes. You can then create any sort of printed output you need. So if you need to hand a plan to the building owner or to some sort of regulatory body, you can do that. You can then export a CSV file of all the data you've collected in that building. So if I very quickly change to my different screen share, I think my spreadsheet is now live. I hope so. So this is the basic output of the data that we've collected now in this building. So you can see that all my different asset types have been collected here, all the different asset IDs. Now, this could be a linking field that you use to link to some sort of existing system or your current way of collecting this, which might be Excel, maybe you're still pen and paper based. A list of all the different data that we've collected here. So for example, if there's a range of different services using this plan, I can come in here and I can filter out all of the electrical systems that I'm looking for. And I can then see all my emergency lights, my exit lights, manual call points and smoke detectors. And then I can list all of the things that have a fault. So let's just say battery low. And I'm coming in here to replace these emergency lights. So this very quickly becomes part of your asset management system. We are the asset visualization component of that. So there's already many other pieces of software and ways of doing asset management. What we offer with PlanStudio is a way of visualizing these assets and keeping track of everything in your building on a floor plan and keeping that floor plan up to date to create a digital living version of that floor plan, or what we like to call a thin twin of that plan. If I come back into PlanStudio, And I think I'm sharing the correct screen again. Sorry, bear with me. I can't see what everyone else can see. The intention here is that you use this when you walk into a building, and anything you need to map or update, you do on the fly. Within PlanStudio, then again, we can export this into any sort of different file format. And through an API or a connection with any other piece of software, you can bring these plans in to any sort of other existing system that you need to. All right, so I'll very quickly start adding down some more assets and show everyone how that works. Let me position down some motion sensors. So we like to always tell everyone to use the software in 3 main steps as you're coming through a building. Firstly, you want to do as much work as you can in the office before you head out to site. So that would be collecting floor plans, setting up your building information, and placing down any assets you can see from existing plans you've been given, if you've been given any. If you haven't been given any, you can do all this directly on site. PlanStudio works directly through a web browser. So you can use an iPad, you can use any sort of tablet, PC, Mac, or run this program directly through a Chrome browser. So when you're on site, if you need to, you can show up and basically walk in, take a photo of an existing plan on a wall, and then just start walking through the building and placing down these assets like I will here. So when you place them down, you can then start filling out the data. So we can say the date this was last served, is it compliant? What service is this relevant for that spreadsheet we export later on? And then if there's any faults, and then if it's mounted to any networks, and then upload any sort of notes, photos, or documents directly to the assets. The other types we have in here are some diagrams. So if there's any sort of printed documents you need to collate or create as you're walking through the building, you can do that directly from PlanStudio, and also exit signage and any sort of other asset you need. On top of that, we have the ability to create any sort of notes or sorry, let me just move everyone out of the way. So add any sort of notes or handwritten messages through the app as well. So at the worst, this can still be used as a pen and paper system, and it's just a digital system for collecting information inside of a building. So in here, you can place down a camera icon or any sort of graphic, note, or document. Place that pin directly where you're standing and start taking photos as a record of what's inside the building. I'll jump in very quickly and show you how these network types here work. So if I come in now and select my data network, now all of these are completely customizable for you. These are just the examples I have, but you can create any sort of line type or network type as you need, and you can start connecting these together. So down the bottom here, I have a security hub. I could, if I wanted to, select a data cable and start drawing these out and connecting these up to my motion sensors here. Sorry, my motion sensors here. The exact same drawing principle as the walls. So these are all just a centerline system here. And obviously these networks can then also have their own data collected on them as well. Are they in the ceiling space? What circuit number is it on? The size of, or the type of cable? Any sort of information you want to collect, you can do so on PlanStudio. I'll continue just drawing out a few of these different network types. And then we may take it over to questions. All right. Sorry, before we do, I'll just quickly run through a bit more of the, if I jump back in here, through the wayfinding of our plans. So over the top of every plan we create, we can lay down what we like to call the nav mesh. Now this is a mesh used by the system for generating any sort of wayfinding. This can be used, let me just turn off some things I don't need here, turn off some equipment, hide things. These blue lines you see through our building, if I turn this all the way up, this is what we call our navigation mesh. So through the building, we can create a wayfinding system to either point people out of the building in the way of evacuation diagrams for online training. But the same navigation system can then also be used to target assets or information through our API. So essentially how this works is you can draw through different paths in a building and assign different path rules. So there may be parts of your building that you can't access from other parts of the building. There may be one-way doors where back of house staff can evacuate out the front, but front of house staff can evacuate out the back. You can create all those different rules inside PlanStudio and then generate the direct paths from anywhere in the building that has line of sight to one of these lines. So by doing this, you can create wayfinding from anyone's desk where they sit to any asset. So that could be used for a range of different reasons, from simply teaching people how to evacuate, teaching people how to get to an asset. It could also be used for people with disabilities to find things or learn how to navigate spaces differently. But predominantly for the industries we're talking to today, this would be for walking into a building and finding any sort of asset that you need to service, and saving time essentially by guessing where things are in a building. Like so. All right. So look, I've given a very quick overview of PlanStudio. I haven't really touched on any of the drafting stuff today, but I'm happy to very quickly open it up to any questions or. Sure. So look, I'll very quickly actually show a bit more on the drafting of the plan. So if you do walk into a building and you realize that there's been some changes since last time you were there, very easy to quickly edit your own floor plans on site. So you can come through and very quickly just start removing walls and deleting things like doorways. You can see these will automatically fill up spaces as I remove them. And the intention here is that you don't have to go back to any sort of designer or engineer as you go, and you can change these floor plans on the fly and keep them up to date. You then own these floor plans and you're capable of basically making any changes you want. As we said, these are very easy tools to use, and it's the same tool all the way through. So we can add in some different door types here, like so, and add in different furniture and assets as we move. Like this. All right. Look, I've shown the basics of the software now, but we would love to take any sort of questions anyone has, and if anyone has anything they'd like me to live demonstrate, I'm more than happy to do so.
Thank you so much, Cody. We do have a couple questions that have come through the Q&A. So I'm going to go ahead and read those out. The first question that we have is, does Locatrix provide mapping services, or do I have to learn it myself?
I might take that one. But both is possible. So we do provide mapping services by all means, but primarily we would like to provide the software. And we've got a academy sitting in the background for people to learn and use the software. So the majority of our partners and clients use the software themselves. And it's a very easy process going forward. As you would have seen, you don't need to be a drafter or fully qualified drafter to use the software. A lot of technicians use it in the field without any prior drafting experience or knowledge. The majority, as I just said, just use it, but we do provide a drafting service if needed. And sometimes it could be just at the beginning of the relationship to get people going and assist them in creating those initial floor plans.
Awesome. The third question that I have here that someone submitted is, can this software integrate with the security cameras and other security assets in the building?
Absolutely. So we provide an open API, or actually multiple versions of that API. And yes, we can integrate into other systems. We primarily do that in the way that we provide the underlying floor plan into third-party software. But in saying that, we can also take in the information of a security camera system and highlight it, similar to the way that when Cody drew in the security camera, we can link those straight together and make them work both ways.
Awesome. And then another question I have here is there any way to show a 3D rendering of the floor plan?
Yes, yeah, I'll let Cody do that.
All right. Yeah, we can do that. Let me just quickly see if I have this enabled for this plan here. All right, jump into 3D mode. All right, so this is a very quick rendering of the 3D plan for this building. So this is all just done behind the scenes as we go. These plans can be rendered up into 3D in a few different ways. We've actually had people use VR goggles before and walk through these buildings. So you can create these on the fly for a bunch of different reasons. Yes.
Perfect. Then another question that we have is, when I am on site, how can I view the plans?
And again, multiple ways possible on that one. The PlanStudio, as Cody was mentioning before, can be used on any device, on any platform. So it can be used just to view the plan, but through the APIs, some particular building owners provide just a URL to that plan. And you just need a web browser and you get access through a link to that particular plan. You can't make any edits. It's just for viewing purposes when you're in the building, and obviously for wayfinding to find an asset.
It might be worth adding to that too, that everything we do in PlanStudio, so you will own your own partnership, and you can give people access to that through an invitation basis. So you will have full control over who you let access your data and how you let them access it. So you can invite people to access certain plans and give them certain roles and permissions so that they can only see specific assets or asset types, and they can do it on a read-only basis or edit or access, only different things that you allow them to. And then you can obviously remove their access when they're done, or keep them on there for different plans and different uses as well.
Perfect. A third question I have here is, what is the sign-up process and what training is available?
Okay, so the sign-up process is quite simple. You can go directly to our website and sign up as a starter. The software itself has no licensing fees directly, so you can sign up and do a trial run, and we allow you to have as many people in that partnership as you like. You can add them and remove them as you need to. With the trial, you basically get access to the screen we've shown you here. There is a selection of administrating tools down here for editing the styles and templates and data that you collect that you don't get access to until you do become a full signed up user. The training itself is all done through the app. We have an integrated training platform as part of this. So the first time you sign on to use the software, there'll be a guided tutorial that runs you through how to start creating your own plan, as well as a range of videos that run you through how all the different tools work that you can go back to at any time and reference them. So as you start, the software will basically guide you through the experience. But of course, any questions or issues that anyone has, we have a team here at Locatrix who are happy to jump in and provide personalized training or answer any questions or any issues you have. As part of that, my role at Locatrix is to work with anyone who uses the software and find if there's anything you need to do or would like to be able to do in the software, and we can help build and change the software and integrate in with your needs and workflows as we go as well.
Perfect. So another question is, can I integrate into other programs?
Yeah, as mentioned before, the APIs can work into any other program, whether it's the data that's been collected that Cody exported into that spreadsheet that can obviously be exported or integrated into an asset management system. We only want to visualize the assets where we're not the asset management component on that front. So we can integrate pretty much into any other third-party software, whether it's from a visualization layer point of view or from a data point of view. The data can be used anywhere else.
Awesome. And what do I do if I need my own different icons and assets?
Okay, so inside PlanStudio, there is an administrator tool here. I'll very quickly bring it up, your icon libraries. So inside your icon libraries, you can have as many different libraries as you like. You can have different assets for different clients or different jobs specifically. And these icon libraries can all work in tandem with each other. So if I pick our default one here, you'll see if I go to edit this, By default, there is about 300 or so different assets in here, everything from air quality sensors to hydrants to forklifts, anything you want, you can create on the fly as you need to by simply clicking add an icon, upload an image, and fill out some details for that as well. These icons can then be, as I said, used in tandem. So as I demonstrated briefly, you can basically lay out one set of icons that you use as a user. So for example, these graphical style smoke detector icons here. You can then put another icon library that works in tandem for different templates. So if you need to do architectural style plans, or you need to print out electrical layout plans that can't use those graphical style icons, you can have different templates and different outputs, changing the icon libraries and styles you use as you go. As part of that, you can also then come through and set up any sort of custom data information you need to on your assets and icons. So for example, if I open these icons down here, let's just pick my exit signs. You can see I can configure any sort of data I want to collect on these here as well. So you can really go in depth with what kind of information you want to collect. And the idea is that everyone will personalize and set this up for the information that's relevant for you when you walk into a building. On top of that, you can also filter the type of icons you want on an output. So again, you can create your different filters for the exports you're doing and use the one floor plan for all your different plans, and they're all generated from one point of truth.
Perfect. So we have two more questions that I see. The first one is, who can access my data and how secure is it?
So, well, your provider, as Cody was mentioning before, access to the people that you want to have access to. So it can be very restrictive. It can be read-only access. It's in a secure cloud environment. Locatrix is certified against the ISO standard 27001 and 2, giving the nature of the clients that are being serviced throughout the software. So the data is absolutely secured. And you've got all the ways to secure that access, or to provide access to the plans in any way, shape, or form you see fit for that.
On top of that, I'll just quickly add that the way PlanStudio works is it's all cloud-based. So there's no saving, there's no, oh, I forgot to save the plan before I finished and I lost work. Everything's always automatically updated to the server. Everything is version controlled and based on user accounts. So each user will have their own account. You can go back through and revert the plan to an earlier stage when a different user touched it, or if someone made mistakes, undo those. There's no losing of work. And also you can export your own files in what we call a PKF file. So that's our own file format. Essentially, with those file formats, they're only usable in PlanStudio. So if someone did get a hold of your files, it's not like an image file or a CAD file. You can only import them into PlanStudio and get the data out that way. So again, that's just another layer of security. But of course, you're inviting people into your partnership, so you would only let people you trust see and access this data in this way. Otherwise, you can always use the API as a simple building viewing tool as well.
Awesome. And the last question that we have from the Q&A is, can these maps be used by first responders in the event of emergencies?
Yes, so we have the intention of using building plans to the people that need it. And we're talking police, fire, ambulance, who would like to see the inside of a building in a secured way, so we can integrate into dispatch tools via the same or similar APIs to make that available to first responders in order for them to have access. And we're trying to combine the outdoors and the indoors. Can you just turn on the satellite layer quickly? Of course. Because what we're trying to do is I'm just waiting for the layer to pop up in the background. What the emergency services already see is the outside of the building via a Google Maps style image, or any wayfinding to the building. And we're trying to combine that with the floor plan, so that the first responders, again, police, fire, ambulance, for example, see the inside and get quicker access to the internals of the floor plan, and get quicker to the incident.
On top of what Andreas just said, it probably is worth mentioning that while PlanStudio is focused at collecting data inside buildings, because that is where we've found there's a shortcoming in the industry where no one has software to collect information inside buildings, you can also use this to collect asset information outside the building as well. As we mentioned, these buildings can have a relationship to each other on a campus or a site plan. So if you have security cameras and assets you need to track outside and around your building, you can do that as well through the software, and it all integrates into that exact same campus and client format.
Awesome. So we do have a few minutes left. If there's anything that you guys want to expand on, or maybe anything that you guys feel that you should show part of the demo. I believe we have about 15 minutes left of the floor is yours. We can continue, or it's your time. So whatever you guys want to do.
Sure. Well, I think maybe I can just very quickly run through and create a floor plan in front of everyone and show you how the software works in a little bit more detail. We skimmed that very quickly at the start because I didn't want to bog people down with, oh, this is just a CAD software where you draw floor plans. So let me quickly just jump in and set up a new plan in a building. So when we start creating these new plans, and let me turn off this really quickly. When we start creating these new plans, the starting off process essentially is locating our building. So if I set this up here, we start off by locating this. So PlanStudio is integrated in with a range of different map providers. Depending on the map provider's access in your area, we have Bing Maps as an underlying layer for everything we do in the software, but you can obviously bring your own imagery and own maps into the software as well. So we start off by searching for our building. Finding that building in PlanStudio, it's automatically going to fill out the address. All this information we collect as we go, then ends up on any sort of exported document we create, or any sort of signage or plan that we print. Create this campus here. We then have floor plans and site plans in here. I'll create a new building. We'll just call this Locatrix office. I won't bother filling out these details right now. And we'll add a new plan into this building here. We'll just call this new floor for now. We're not going to use it. Create from site plan, use satellite layer as I showed at the start. Select this, rotate our plan, and I'll import a graphic this time that's a little bit nicer to see. Import a multi-page PDF and choose how you'd like to import that. Now, these files can all be saved inside PlanStudio for use later on, and I'll quickly crop this plan down like so. We actually recommend for people when they do export these plans, you can always import them back into PlanStudio and leave them inside your browser so that you can later on access them and see why you made changes to those plans too. Using a different version of rescaling a plan, so if we don't have dimensions like on this one here, we can draw a simple line from point A to point B and use that to match our floor plan over the top of the satellite image and then get drawing this way. So just to quickly illustrate how easy it is to lay out a brand new building that you don't have drawn, we can start just drawing over the top, and by layering over these areas here, you can very quickly lay out a building. We've found that this is one of the easiest drafting tools in the industry right now. It's very simple to lay out a building. Now, you're not going to have quite the level of detail that you would in a CAD plan, and we actually find that to be a benefit because we're not worried about being perfect to the fraction of the inch here. It's mostly just to lay out the internal information and have things on a floor plan for you to use later on. So I can very quickly run these lines all the way through a building like so. Trim off all the parts that I don't need. Like this, lay down my different door types. And of course, as you're drafting, there's many different ways to do this. If you have a touchscreen device, you can use a stylus. You can set up a range of different hotkeys and favorites and settings as you go to make what you do much easier. We can obviously also edit any sort of properties of these doors and things we're placing as we go. And if I just turn off this background graphic, you can start seeing the floor plan I've created here. So I very quickly created a pretty comprehensive floor plan for this building and lay all these out. I can then start drawing in my different stairs. And in about 5 minutes, I've just created an entire floor plan where before we didn't have one. Place in any furniture or items you need and go from there. So run this around and start placing down some different asset information. So place down my motion sensors, place down some security cameras, place down things like access cards, and upload any information you need to as you go. So as far as creating a floor plan quickly and collecting information on a building, this is about as quick and easy as it gets. But that's essentially it. Look, for any extra information, we have a range of videos on our YouTube page as well as our website. If anyone has any questions or information they think of after this, you can always obviously reach out to us at Locatrix.
Yeah. One thing to mention quickly to that floor plan, and just to reiterate that this has now been data, all the information, the doors and the zones, everything. It will give you square footage. It will give you all the dimension, and it will render straight in 3D out of that one, which is an important part to keep that floor plan current later on and to apply quick changes. And we find it quite important, and probably more important than drawing the floor plan is keeping the data current and keeping that floor plan up to date.
Perfect.
Awesome.
If there's no more questions or anything else has come through.
Yeah, no more questions so far. I think you guys have been very informative and very clear on how everything works. I know I definitely learned a lot throughout this webinar. So thank you so much, guys. And to our participants, we will be sharing this on social platforms as well, especially on YouTube. So keep an eye out for that. Is there anything else that you guys want to say before we close up?
Just thank you very much for everyone attending and watching the demonstration. And we hope we get some more questions back, and just hop on our website to get some more information.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, guys, for your time today and for doing an incredible demo of PlanStudio. And we'll be in touch. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Good day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.